Hi, this is Worth Godwin, worthgodwin.com. Plain English simplicity for a complex modern world. In this video, we're going to take a look at a common kind of scam that is run on people, and it's very common if you run a Craigslist ad, and that's how, basically I'm going to walk you through what happened, how I was interacting with someone who I could tell was a scammer, and I kind of drew them out and kind of let them didn't tip my hand and let them know that I knew that I was onto them, in other words, so that I could make a lesson like this. I just figured I would use the experience to help you guys. Now, this happened because I was running an ad on Craigslist, but I want you to recognize when you're watching this and listening to what I'm explaining, I want you to listen for the principles and the underlying structure, the underlying pattern of what's being done, and how I was able to pick up on it, and the common patterns that while the specific details may differ from one person to another and how they're trying to scam you, there are patterns to it. And if you can pick up on those patterns, then you can arm yourself with knowledge to protect yourself against those people actually getting your money. So here's this message I got back in January. And basically this guy says, "Hello, I saw your ad on Craigslist, and I'd like to know if you can tutor my daughter starting from February 20th, twice a week for 1 month. She's 13 years and ready to learn. Please get back to me with a time schedule and the total amount for the lessons. Thanks." Now, a couple things about this immediately leapt out at me. First off, if you look at the timestamp there, this text message came in at 12:45. Now, as we will see in just a moment, this guy is supposedly texting me from New York, which would be basically at like 4:45 a.m. their time. So that immediately is a little suspicious that they're texting at this hour. Second thing you should notice is the use of commas and spelling and capitalization. And you'll notice that, for example, you've got hello, comma, and then no space, and then a lowercase I. And keep in mind, anything that I'm pointing out here, individually, none of these things is really enough to flag it as a potential scam, but they all add up and they all point to the same conclusion. You've got this scenario where this person allegedly has a daughter, 13 years old, who wants to have twice a week's lessons for a month. And what that adds up to, in other words, is a bunch of, they're trying to offer something that sounds like a lot of money up front all at once, where someone who's maybe there, in this particular case, they're targeting a teacher, and they would run the same basic kind of a scam as someone who was doing math tutoring or piano lessons or whatever. And it happens to be computer related in my case, but in fact, if you look at it, I don't think there's any point in this. Yeah, that doesn't say anything about actually computer lessons specifically. They're just saying tutoring. So they're really being very generic here, which is another possible warning sign. So I responded, and I at this point I already knew this is a little strange, and I assumed it probably was a scam, but I figured I'd play along so that I could record this lesson right now. So I got back to them the next day, and I said, "Hi, I'm just having a chance to check my messages in this line. Where are you and your daughter located? Mac or Windows computer?" So the first thing you should ask if you're ever contacted by anybody with anything like this, start asking for specifics. I get this weird response: "I want a physical tutoring." And so again, we got this sort of strange use of language. Lowercase, it's all lowercase, which again is nothing by itself, but "I want a physical tutoring" is a very odd response, and it sort of suggests, as it should suggest to you, that this person may not be speaking English as a first language, which again, that's not anything by itself, but we're talking about looking at all the little things, the common patterns, and where they all point to. So I respond, "Yes, I understand that. That's why I'm asking where you're located. It also helps for me to know what kind of computer she uses." Okay, so here we go. "I'm in New York presently, but I will be traveling for business, and I want her to too busy." I assume he means to be busy while I'm busy working. "She uses a Mac computer. Please text me the total cost." So again, there's this request for the total cost. And this person is supposedly in New York State somewhere right now. which again, you have to wonder why on earth would they text me at 3:45 in the morning their time. Kind of an odd time to be texting. And so this guy produces some kind of details, traveling for business, and wants you to be busy. So it's sort of an explanation for this. But now, again, this is supposedly a 13-year-old daughter. This is January 23rd, which is right in the middle of the school year. And traveling on business. Now, is it very likely that this person would be traveling for business out to Hawaii for a month with a 13-year-old kid who should be in school this time of year? It's not impossible, but again, it's one of those little things that seems a little strange. So I respond, and again, I'm just kind of treating it as I would if it were a legitimate thing, and not trying to make it obvious that I know that I'm onto them. Giving a very legitimate response and trying to get some details at the same time. So I get this response here, and this is out of order for some reason, so I'm just going to scroll down enough so you can see it. I have arranged for a cab driver that will be bringing her to you for the lessons. So once all is settled, she will be coming for the lectures at your preferred location. Okay, now if it wasn't odd enough that this guy is traveling with his 13-year-old daughter, he's now refused to, without actually addressing it directly, he's refused to actually answer my question, my very simple and reasonable question as to where on earth they actually are. And he's willing to, apparently, without even talking to this person, put his daughter, his 13-year-old daughter, in a cab and send the kid off to some random location, to some person he's never spoken to. This should be, this should be very obvious at this point that this is just, that's really, really suspicious and strange. Because I don't know any father or mother who would do that. So my response, I mentioned my hourly rate and everything. Then I get a response back from him, which is another little flag here. Okay, no problem. My financiers will be handling the payment, and they will be paying you through check. Please, is that acceptable by you? Okay, so this guy's he's talking as if he's a businessman, or he's no specifics as to what business, of course, but he's traveling on business. My financiers. These words are sort of, and the choices of what he's talking about, there's one of two things going on here, or maybe a combination of the two. The whole thing is designed to kind of make you assume, okay, this is just somebody with money. They clearly have no problem spending as much money as possible. And the idea, and they're driving towards this, what would be potentially a large paycheck for somebody. In this case, it would be hypothetically like $800 to $1,000 or more all at once. And they want you to get all caught up on like, oh, the money, I'm going to have this money about soon. And the more people think about money and get excited about it and emotional about it, the more likely you are to fail to think about it rationally and logically, and that's what they want. So they're trying to give the impression of being important and having money and so forth, but then you have this weird choice of words. My financiers will be handling the payment, and they're paying you through check. Okay, and the check is very important because that's what the scam actually is, and I'll get to that in just a second. But my financiers, a weird choice of words. So it's either an attempt, a somewhat clumsy attempt, to sound impressive using big words, which is very much at odds with the lack of capitalization, the weird lack of spaces after commas, the commas that sometimes should be a period and not a comma, and it's not consistent. And you have these inconsistencies that are just all the way through this thing. So, and the check is that's what they're really driving at this whole time. I, at this point, decided, I kind of tipped my hand. I said, I will prefer to take a card number by phone. Would this be a personal or business check? Yes, sure, is the last thing I heard from them. And I never heard from them again. The check is the key to the scam. And again, don't think of this just too narrowly in terms of this is a Craigslist kind of a scam, but this sort of thing happens with phone calls or email or what have you. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to pay you with a check. But what would happen is you would receive a check that would be for larger than the amount specified. So if I told them, let's say $800 for all those lessons, one-on-one tutoring, then they would have sent me $1,000 or they would have sent me $2,000 or who knows how much. And they would have said, either they would have made up some kind of excuse, like say there was a mention of a taxi cab, so they would want that to be paid for the taxis or something like that, or more likely they would say it was a mistake. And then they would ask me to write a check and send it off, or maybe use like Western Union or something like that, because that's not refundable, and send it off to, again, a third party. And that's what they're doing, is what they'll do is they will send you a fake certified check or cashier's check. You deposit it. Your bank, because the bank system is still, despite it being 2015, the bank is extremely slow and inefficient and working with 20th century technology, and they can't tell if the check is valid for up to like 2 weeks. So, which is somewhat inexcusable, I think, but this is how these things work. And so they get you to, the scammer gets you to write a check, or maybe use Western Union or something like that, or a money order, and send money, the difference between what you asked for and what they paid you, whatever that difference is, $100 or $1,000 or whatever, and you send it off to a third party. They get that money, typically in some way where they can grab the money and they can run, and then your bank realizes this isn't a valid check. And then they pull all that money, the $1,000 or whatever it might be, out of your bank account, including everything that was deposited originally. So everything you paid to the third party is gone. Anything you've spent of that in the meantime is gone, and this is all, and you end up with, in many cases, a negative balance and fees, or at the very least, however many, hundreds of dollars or $1,000 or more, lower balance than you were expecting, and fees, and you're stuck. So that's the basic scam. Is they're trying to send you a check. They want you to send part of that money to somewhere else, and then they pocket it, and then you're left holding the bag. So I hope that this lesson makes sense, and what I try to do is try to break it down to a very small, granular level, and it may be more granular or more small chunk, is to use an NLP term, than many people might need. But those people who do need it, I want to make sure that you guys are not left out, and you understand this, and you understand the principles, you understand the patterns to look for, so that you can stay safe and protected. This is Worth Godwin of WorthGodwin.com. Plain English simplicity for a complex modern world.